Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. This show is designed to highlight the work of leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, Rosita Romero, and Rosita joins us from New York City. Rosita is the Executive Director and co-founder of the Dominican Women's Development Center. Let's all welcome Rosita Romero. And Rosita, it is a great pleasure to have you back on Successful Philanthropy. And just to do a little recap, I understand you started this organization back in 1988. You were very, very young. Why did you decide to start the Dominican Women's Development Center?
Thank you very much, Jean, for having me one more time in your show. A group of 9 women started the Dominican Women's Development Center 34 years ago. We wanted to support and help advance the condition of Dominican and other Latino women in relation to the sexist attitudes in our community and the problems that we faced as immigrants. We wanted to help the women learn English, find affordable housing, find employment, and we didn't have a space. There were no Dominican organizations back in the days, and we got together. We put together bylaws and programs and logos or documents to start the organization, and then we opened it up to 30 women to be part of the organization, and 30 women came when we told them that our intention was to create an organization that would stay around for many years. So we needed to have a budget to have a space, staff, and all the other costs related with having a nonprofit organization. We passed around the hat, and we asked everyone to give $1 symbolically. So we started the organization with $30 and a dream. And right now we are an organization with a budget of $5 million. We have 6 different programs. We provide services to 10,000 individuals per year, mostly women and their families. We serve men, children. We serve all women, not only Latina women. The organization has grown to a point where we are able to provide services for the entire community. And some of those services have to do with childcare services, health promotion. We have a great program, very holistic, comprehensive program against domestic violence.
And Rosita, I would like to just interrupt you right there because I want to backtrack for a minute and just bring up something. So you started with $30, and over 30 years, you grew to an organization or a charity with a budget annually of $5 million. How did you do that?
That was done with passion, love, sweat, and tears. Many of us who were on the board of directors started doing small fundraisers, potlucks, and started little by little writing grants. We are actually, we were in the first round of grantees of the New York Women's Foundation, and we are eternally grateful to the foundation because they believed in us. And we were just beginning. It was our first grant, and then we started getting other grants. At the beginning, the grants were small as $1,500, and now the grants have, as we have develop a track record and proven to be able to provide quality services and really be welcomed by the community, we are now getting some grants, $1 million, half a million, but it has been like ants, little by little, small efforts that have led to big results.
Yes, and I understand you also receive some government funding. And what is it like to be a charity that receives government funding? Do you run it pretty much the same as you would without the government funding, or do you have to run it differently?
You do have to run it differently, and government funding is a very challenging situation. Sometimes it could be a blessing, sometimes it could be a curse. Um, the good thing about government grants is that it's a lot of money. They tend to be large grants. The bad thing about it is that there is a lot of bureaucracy, there is red tape, there's a lot of monitoring. We are heavily monitored. There are a lot of requirements for the compliance. And the worst part about it is that the money does not come in on time, and the money is given to us on a reimbursement basis. So first we have to provide the services, and then we get reimbursed, and we usually get reimbursed late, which is the main challenge. That's why we need the support of foundations and individuals to manage the organization where we get the government grants.
Yes, now I serve on a number of charities that receive government funding. And what, as a board member, what I found is that it enables us to work on more programs and provide more services. Now, getting back to the current situation in New York and in the United States, we've recently seen a large influx of immigrants coming into the country from South America and Latin America. And I understand that the Dominican Women's Development Center has gotten involved in helping the immigrants that are now coming into New York. Can you talk to us a little bit about how your programs to work with the immigrants are coming along?
Yes, as an organization and as a that is providing advocacy for the entire community, we act as first respondents. We did it with the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, we are responding with the immigrants, refugees that are coming from the state of Texas. And we have one of our spaces in the basement of a church. The pastor of the church, Father Luis, he is allowing the people to be a drop-off center. So when many of the immigrants come, they're dropped off here and they come downstairs. We do the intake to determine what are the needs that they have. And by doing that, we are showing compassion and the ability to respond to immediate needs in our community. And it's really heartbreaking because this family comes, they need everything. They need clothes, food, shelter, emergency Medicaid. Today, for instance, we are doing a collaboration with New York Presbyterian Hospital, and they are providing free medical services to 200 of these immigrants. Mm-hmm. And we have so many people providing volunteer work, donating clothes, coming to help us cook food for these people who are hungry and who come with nothing, really. So that's the kind of thing that our organization is equipped now. We have the infrastructure to be able to respond. We are going to be also collecting donations for the victims of the hurricane in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. and we are active participants of everything that happens in our community. Our leaders, our elected officials know that when there is a crisis, they can come, or even if it's not for crisis, we're there for every day. They can come to the Dominican Women's Development Center, and we will step up to the plate. We will say yes somehow.
Well, you're doing wonderful work, and I think it's very important that we all open up our hearts and do what we can for the immigrants that are coming into this country. Most of us, parents, or not in my case, my parents, but my grandparents on my father's side were immigrants from Italy, and they came to this country with not very much. And well, generation after generation, life changes, and we have to always put ourselves in the situation of perhaps someone coming into this country as an immigrant. And so it's very important, I think, for all of us to open up our hearts and also open up our wallets and try to be a little helpful. Now, Rosita, speaking of fundraising and doing the work you do, um, you're having a big fundraiser coming up. I think the date is October 13th. Can you give our audience a few details about that?
Yeah. First of all, we would like to thank you, Jean Shafiroff, for your support to our organization for the past 4 or 5 years. And you have been the chair of the benefit committee for many years, and we really appreciate that. This year, you are also part of the benefit committee, and you are really demonstrating how people can get involved in community-based organizations and really make a contribution that makes a difference. This year, we are celebrating our 34th anniversary. We are going to do it at a very nice, spectacular gala at the Surf Club on the Sound in New Rochelle. We have outstanding honorees. We have Tiffany Sullivan from the New York Presbyterian Hospital, one of our partners. We have Dr. Olijade Williams from Columbia University, Tamara Romero from the Health First insurance company. We have Alex Damiron from Somos Community Network. And we're honoring our management team because they're the one who really carry out the work and make sure that the frontline staff is also conducting the work out there. And they're being recognized. We have people in the community that have been doing work for many years, like Dr. Jorge Piña and Karina Rieken. And it's going to be a beautiful evening. We're going to have live music, food, dancing, open bar with premium liquor. So if people would like to attend that event or send a donation, if you're not able to attend, they can visit our website, DWDC.org. It's the initials of the organization, Dominican Women's Development Center, DWDC.org.
And you always do an amazing job. It's always a fun night with a great group of people, a lot of dancing, and for a great, great cause. Now, Rosita, we started to discuss a few of the problems that women face in New York City, people from all backgrounds. And what do you find to be the biggest problem that you deal with?
The biggest problems that we face are the lack of knowledge of the English language. Because if you don't know the language, you're not going to be able to get an education, a higher degree organization. You're not going to be able to find a job. So that continues to be a challenge in our community. There is also a lack of job. We experience higher unemployment rates. Right now, after the pandemic, many of our participants who were some of the hardest hit, they still haven't found jobs, and they still have the need for food. Food insecurity is a big problem in our community. Another big problem is domestic violence. It's not something that happens only in the Latino community, it happens in all community. And when we talk about domestic violence, we're not only talking about physical abuse, we're talking about verbal, emotional, sexual type of abuse. And next week, as a matter of fact, we are having the Brides March against domestic violence, which is a march, a walk in memory of Gladys Ricard, a Dominican woman that was killed by her ex-husband. And we, which the day she was getting married to another man. And that program is very comprehensive. We have a 24 hours hotline. We provide individual counseling, support groups, and that continues to be a big problem in our community. The last one that I would like to mention is childcare. There is a need for free or affordable childcare centers in our community. We have a childcare center called Mama Tingo Childcare Center, where we care for 110 children on a daily basis. And it's really not enough. We have plans of expanding our childcare centers to the Bronx and to other areas where mostly Dominican community is moving to because of the displacement and gentrification in our area. People are forced to move to other communities. So we would like to go where people are.
Yes, and for our audience, we are with Rosita Romero. Rosita is the executive director and co-founder of the Dominican Women's Development Center. Now, Rosita, do you feel you've made headway with some of the problems facing the women of New York? You mentioned domestic violence, you mentioned food insecurity, or are these problems growing and getting worse?
The problems still exist. I wouldn't say that they're getting worse. I believe that we are educating, we are saving lives. We know that we are making an impact. We are creating change. And that is what fuels the staff and the organization, knowing that the women, the families continue to come. And when they come, they feel satisfied with the services that we're providing. So even though these problems exist, because we are a small organization, a medium-sized organization compared to problems that are national, we're not solving them, but we're definitely making things. We are definitely making contributions towards a better world. We are feeding people. We are reducing the incidence of domestic violence. We are helping women learn the language. We're helping women find jobs, start small businesses. And that's how we create a difference.
By empowering women and families and communities. And Rosita, you touched on something, food insecurity, which was a big problem during the pandemic when so many millions of Americans and people around the world were out of work. But now I understand inflation has caused a situation where food prices have really skyrocketed, and they're actually up somewhere between 8, 9, 10% greater than they were a year ago. So are you finding now that people who maybe had a little better situation in between the end of the pandemic and now, are they now in need of food again?
Yes, our food distribution lines are still very long. And I believe that it has to do with the fact that there are a lot of people who are still have not been able to find job after the pandemic. There are some businesses that closed down. There are many businesses and organizations that have not been able to recuperate in spite of the government assistance, that there's still people who have not been able to really reintegrate and recover from the effect of the pandemic.
It's all really not a pretty situation. And of course, when someone doesn't have a job, and then when food prices go up to the tune of about 8 or 9% in 1 year, well, it makes it very difficult for many, many people. And most importantly, I think of the children. And if a child doesn't have enough food on the table, well, their development suffers. Their brains can't develop the same way. A brain needs protein, and we have to think about our children. We have to think about our families. And Rosita, I love that the Dominican Women's Development Center is also providing food in addition to other services. And food meaning you're creating a situation where people can get food when they don't have food. Very, very important. And Rosita, if you had a wish list, tell me what 2 or 3 things would you really want?
We need funds for the organization to improve the infrastructure. We need funds to hire additional staff. We need people to donate used clothes in good condition. We need money to buy food. We have an LGBTQ youth drop-in center. In that drop-in center, we'd like to have young people can take showers, they can do their laundry, they can recreate, and we like to have snack when they come in. They need toiletries. Those are some of the things that people need: food, clothes, basic necessities.
So you need more funding to do the work properly and to provide the services that are needed in the community, not just for women, but for the LGBTQ community and for children and for immigrants. And right now there's great need. And again, the website for the Dominican Women's Development Center
is DWDC.org. The initials of the organization, Dominican Women's Development Center, DWDC.org.
Now, for the audience, you sometimes might think, well, I don't have a lot of money. I can't give a lot. But trust me, even if you give $5, $10 collectively, all of those small donations add up and they create change. Rosita, what about volunteers? Do you accept volunteers to work in your organization?
Yes, we need volunteers to give out food and clothing, to participate in when we are providing medical services like today. You need a lot of people managing a crowd. We welcome people with different type of skills, and doing tutoring for people who are learning English, reading books to children. We need a lot of volunteers. Definitely, the doors are open for people to do that. And on our website, people can do the recurring donations. And what you mentioned, it's so important, Jean, because when we don't always define ourselves as philanthropists, but being a philanthropist could be making a $10 donation per month, recurring donation to an organization. That's how people usually start. And anybody can, out of the goodness of their heart, start that process. And nonprofit organizations always need donations to cover expenses, to hire additional staff, because our staff is always the demands are increasing because of all the problems in society. And so we always need the additional fund, and every little bit helps.
Yes, and you mentioned anyone can be a philanthropist. Well, back in 2016, I wrote the book, Successful Philanthropy, How to Make a Life by What You Give. And in that book, I defined philanthropy. It's not my definition, but it's the love of mankind or humankind, and of course, the animal world and the environment. And then I go on to say that anyone can be a philanthropist. For those who have the money, of course, you must give of your money. But if you don't have money, you can become a philanthropist by giving your time and knowledge, which means volunteering. And gradually you can start making small donations, and never think that what you can offer doesn't matter, because it does. We all have great value. And if you believe that you can make change, you can make change. Finally, Rosita, I want to ask you, you came to this country as an immigrant. What advice would you give to people coming into the United States as immigrants right now? What would you do, or what did you do that you found to be most helpful?
Well, the first thing is that you have to learn the language. And the other thing is that you have to stay focused on your goals. Be intentional about everything that you do. Do things with love and passion, hard work, responsibility, and contribute to the community as much as you can. Join others in the uh, goal of improving the condition of the entire community. And also take care of yourselves. That's something that we as a women's organization promote very strongly. We cannot be there only for women. We have to be there or the family. We have to be there for ourselves first. Um, when you take care of yourself, when you love yourself and you take the time to do that, then you are in a position, in a much stronger position to help others. And one thing that I personally believe, work hard and play hard. You always have to find a way of getting rid of that stress. Life is not about work. Life is about living and about loving ourselves and loving one another.
Rosita, you've been a wonderful guest, and I want to thank you very much for joining us. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest today, Rosita Romero. Rosita is the Executive Director and co-founder of the Dominican Women's Development Center. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host. I'll see you next week.